Hey everybody, this is Bradley here. One of the most common questions that I get doing seminars or just talking to people in general about airbrushing is what type of airbrush do you use, and then also what type of airbrush should they get first looking into purchase an airbrush for painting. So I thought I'd put a video together to kind of help guide you along the way and hopefully help you in making a decision on what type of gun that you want to get to painting. So a couple things that I always tell people to do is to keep in mind of how often you're going to use it, how many bodies that you're going to be painting, to justify if it's worth the money spending X amount of dollars on whatever airbrush you choose. So what I'll do is I'll cover a couple of different types of airbrushes that are out there and available, and also the ones that I use and the reasons why I choose those. So in front of me I got a lot of different airbrushes that I've used over the years. There's Iwata airbrushes, there's Badgers, there's Pache, there's Parmas, are basically the ones that I typically use. All of them spray relatively close, but each one has a little bit of difference from one another. So a couple things that you'll want to look at when you're buying an airbrush is, people say, do I want a single action or dual action? The difference between the two is on a single action airbrush, you're only going to get one thing, and that's the pressure, which is up and down. You won't be able to adjust your paint flow by doing it by the trigger. So what you'll have to do is each time that you go to adjust the paint flow, you're going to have to redo the back part, and you're going to have to adjust that needle in or out, put it back down, put your whole assembly back together, and then try it and see if that's where you want it. A lot of times it's very time consuming to do that. A lot of adjustment, getting exactly where you want. And then also keep in mind, as you're painting a different area, you're going to want a different type of paint flow. So with a single action airbrush, it's going to be very time consuming. You can get it to spray how you want, but just adjusting it and getting exactly where you want is going to take more time. The other one that's out there that's typically people use is what they call a dual action airbrush. Dual action airbrush has the same thing with the pressure, pushing in and out. Except on these, you pull back to get your paint flow. So you don't have to stop and take the whole assembly apart each time that you need to adjust it to get that right paint flow. You just simply pull back on the trigger. And as you're spraying, you can pull back more to get more paint as you want. Very easy to use. It's kind of awkward at first, especially with the triggers, and it feels kind of different. You're trying to get the hang of it, but I always tell people, if you get a single action airbrush, the next thing you want to do is step up to a dual, because it's going to save you that time in your adjustment and get it to spray exactly how you want. So if you have a single action now, look into a dual action airbrush. I think you can adapt to it pretty easily. It's nice and convenient once you get the hang of it. If you haven't painted anything at all and you're looking for an airbrush, I suggest getting a dual action right away. The difference between the two, I think it's maybe $15 or $20 at the most. Definitely worth it for the $15 or $20 to get it. And like I said, if you're not painting, it's just something you're going to have to get used to anyhow, whether it be a single action or dual action. You might as well get the better airbrush now right off the bat. So I always suggest people to get a dual action airbrush. A lot of the airbrushes, they run right around the same price. Some can be a lot more costly depending on what you want to get into as far as detail. Entry-level airbrush, you can probably get somewhere right around $100. The Iwata, the brand that I use, they make an entry-level airbrush called the Neo brand. It's their line of kind of like an entry-level airbrush. The parts and stuff are readily available for them. You can fix them. You can change the different needles and heads on them. Just slightly different quality than the regular Neo brand, or excuse me, the regular Iwata brand that I use. So you can get them, they're cheaper. If you're first getting an airbrush and you're not sure if that's what you're wanting to do, save yourself a little bit of money and look at the Neo brand. Once again, more of an entry-level airbrush. So a lot of the different airbrushes over the years have looked the same. Some have. You can see how these have a little bit of a wider, fatter handle on it. It's a little bit easier to hold. If you have big hands, it might be a little bit easier for you to hold on to these. These are Badgers, and the other one is a Pache that I've used. So that tells the difference between the two guns, the single action or the dual action. I prefer the dual action, and I highly recommend a dual action airbrush. So the other type that you can get too, along with a single action, the dual action, is they have what they call a gravity feed airbrush, which is basically this type of airbrush. It's got a cup on top, and what it basically means is you pour your paint in the top of the cup, and the gravity flows down through the gun and is pulled out with the air. The other one is called a siphon, and it's this type of gun here where you basically have paint that comes with a cup. You put your paint in the cup, you attach the cup to the side of your air gun, and what it does is it siphons it out from the bottom. The gravity one, I can tell you from experience over the years, is a lot easier to use and it's a lot cleaner to maintain. I did use cups for a few years when I was first getting into it. If you don't want to use a cup, you can get these different nozzle attachments. They've got them for a 1 ounce bottle or a 2 ounce bottle. I used to have all the paints in separate jars with all these separate lids on it, but what happens is you have the cost of the lids, plus the hard thing too is keeping them clean. You have to have really good flow of the paint. Nothing can be clogged up on it in your gun or also in the bottle or any of these attachments here. So long story short, I was spending a lot of time cleaning and maintaining to try to keep these fresh and clean all the time, and it really didn't do me any good. So the second thing that I would suggest is, obviously your dual action, but get one that's a gravity feed versus a siphon. It's going to be a lot easier to clean. You're going to be able to pick this gun up and be able to use it and not have to worry about everything flowing correctly on it. So that's the difference between a gravity feed and a siphon feed. And then we cover the dual action, the single action airbrush. So typically what I use is the Iwata brand airbrushes for a couple different reasons. Over the years, going through a lot of the guns, you're going to find out which ones are going to last easier on the parts. It's not going to wear out as easily. The other thing that I look forward to is I want an airbrush where I can go down, I can pick it up, I can start spraying, and I don't have to worry about any type of malfunction in the gun where I got to get it to work. It's kind of like if you're going to your job with a tool, you don't want to have your drills or anything else that's not working. You got to make it work every time. So over the years, I felt these airbrushes are extremely easy to pick up. Hook them up, attach them, and you're good to go. There's a few things that you want to do with any type of airbrushes when you're painting is make sure you maintain them and you keep them cleared from debris and any type of paint, anything else that clogs them up. So it's definitely going to help you when you go to paint. You aren't going to have to worry about any type of old paint in the gun that's messing it up. There's two Iwata airbrushes that I use. The first one is the HPCS, which is pretty common. You can find them in a lot of your hobby and craft stores. It's a gun that's basically going to spray anything that you're going to need. It's going to go down to a really fine tip, and it's also going to give you a rather broad tip. The other one that I use is the HPCR, which is this one, and what it does is it gives you a little bit of a wider pattern. So what I do is probably 95% of my work is done with the HPCS, and then if I have a wider project that I'm doing, say, an 8-scale on-road body, or maybe even a truggy or a drag car where you've got a bigger, broader surface to paint, it's gonna flow a little bit better and give you a little bit better coverage on the wide pattern. Not saying that you can't do it with these, but it may be a little bit easier to do it the way this gun is set up. So I use one for my broad patterns, and I use this one here for pretty much anything else that's underneath of that. So this particular gun you can get, I buy all mine at Hobby Lobby. I think they're right around $150. They come with typically the hose and a couple of little bottles of paint. They give you a little bottle of airbrush cleaner with it. There's a lot of different gift packs you can get too, where they'll come with a little bit more of a variety of parts with it. Depends on if you've got a braided hose or not, or if a plastic hose. So look at them also when you're going to be investing in your first airbrush. If you're going to want that braided hose, get it in a whole kit, because it's usually a little bit cheaper to get it that way. So the guns are very durable. Typically for usage, I get right around a year or a year and a half tops per airbrush. Typically I shoot anywhere between 600 and 1,000 bodies a year. So if you put the number of bodies that you get out of the airbrushes, they're very durable. And the particular one, this one right here that I've been using now, it's just right around a year old. And any of these airbrushes that I've used, I've never had to replace the needle or the tip in them. So they are very durable. They don't wear out. You can buy replacement tips for them in the needles assemblies. So if you do want to swap it out rather than buying a whole gun, you can do that as well. Typically what I do, if you can see on this one or not, I use them so much that I wear the chrome out of the inside of the cup on them. But as far as durability, be careful with them. Don't drop them. You know, if you drop them on the floor, they fall off your hanger. You can damage the head assembly on them. You can, you know, mess with a plunger or the dent the cup. There's things you can do with them, but just be very careful with them when you're using them. So they're a very, very durable airbrush and one that I highly recommend. Parts are readily available for all of them. So one of the other things too that I'll talk about with any of the airbrushes that you pick, you'll want to invest in a moisture trap. A lot of them are pretty simple. Like I said, some of the package that you can get come with the moisture traps. What it's going to help you with is as you're painting, your atmosphere that you're in is going to change. You get a hot compressor, you got a colder environment, you're going to start to get water in your air line. So this here, once you attach it to your gun, is going to prevent any moisture from getting into your paint as you're spraying. You can also get inline water traps that are nice. That you basically splice your hose and it goes in between on your hose. I kind of like those a little bit better than these. The reason why I don't prefer these as much is when you attach them onto your gun like this and your air hose goes on the bottom, it makes this a lot longer. So it does feel different sitting in your hand versus having this whole section being in line in your hose. So just a preference for the feel. They both do the same thing. But it will help keep moisture out of your paint project. So hopefully that will help you out. The dual action airbrush is definitely a lot nicer fit down the road. I tell people, you know, once you start painting, and you're going to get painting more often, you're going to be a lot more comfortable with using a dual action airbrush as far as the adjustment versus a single action. And then also work with your gravity feed. I think most places now carry the gravity feed and the dual action because I think people, you know, tend to go to that type of gun down the road. So hopefully that will help you out. If you have any questions on any of this that I covered, don't hesitate to either shoot me a message on Facebook or a comment on the YouTube page. So one thing I always want to do is we'll be doing a lot more videos like this and getting in more detail. Let me know if you want more detail or if there's something I cover that you know, needs a little bit better explanation of it. So other than that, I appreciate everybody. Make sure you like and subscribe to the page. Also shoot me any comments that you got and we'll help you out down the road. Thanks again.